Hello, everyone, and we are back with another podcast episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. It is me, Dean. I am here, and today we are going to talk about the Perfect Order set review. But of
Yes.
course, I'm not here by myself. There's no way I can have the discussion with just me alone. I have Dev with me. Dev, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Just very, very intriguing kind of piece. We're getting ready for rotation. We're getting ready for this new set. Pokepia just launched on the Switch 2 today, so it's a lot of Pokemon, a lot of everything. So I'm excited to talk about the TCG because this set is bringing in and ushering in a new era that I think is refreshing for a lot of players.
Oh yeah, a lot of people in my shop and in my league, we're excited for rotation. It's the last, I would say about 6 months. It's been feeling stale,
Mhm.
just because you're seeing the same decks over and over again, like doing well at tournaments, doing well in just at the competitive scene, and a lot of those decks are going to rotate. So there's going to be no more Godango, no more Charizard, no more Gardevoir. We still have Dragapult, but even then, that's going to change in itself as well. So, talking about Perfect Order is really just a breath of fresh air, seeing how we're going to adapt as trainers once really a lot of important cards are going to be out. And I know you and me, we're working on another video talking about the cards that we are losing. So be on the lookout for that. But today, let's talk about the cards that are to come. But before we get into that, I want to talk about Pokemon Day. We just celebrated Pokemon's 30th anniversary, and there was a little bit of TCG news.
Yeah, very
So,
little,
Dev,
but
very little, but what are your thoughts on what was announced for the TCG?
So the biggest and probably really the only takeaway that's TCG related on the Pokemon Day presents was that there is going to be a 30th anniversary collection set or a 30th anniversary set of some form. We have no idea how it's going to be packaged. We have no idea what's going to be in it. All we know is that the entire world's going to get it at the same time, which is the first time they've really ever done that for a TCG set.
Yeah, I think the closest we ever got to that was getting a set 2 weeks after Japan. And relatively, um, that was just relatively recently. I'd say in the last like couple years, but it happened only once compared to what we're about to get now, as we're going to talk about Perfect Order. And then Japan's actually going to get their Ninja Spinner set by the time this episode releases. So we're going to be two full sets behind Japan. But as you mentioned, we're finally going to get something at the same time. We don't know when. They didn't announce a date. They just said that this year, for the 30th anniversary, we will get a global simultaneous release set. So I'm excited to see what that is and how that really will shape the competitive scene, the collector scene, just the TCG scene as a whole.
Yeah, and the one thing they did showcase on the kind of like the teaser for this was a whole bunch of iconic cards that made an impression on their metas when they were all standard legal. Every single one of those cards either won a worlds or won a regional equivalent tournament when they were legal. So they're not just throwing out random cards. This set is going to be the best of the best, the most iconic, the most revered. So this is definitely going to be more of a collector's set. I don't see a lot of playable cards in them just because of what they showcased in the trailer. But at the end of the day, if we can get the first Pokemon movie Mew card again, that's such an iconic card. Getting that reprinted would just be great to just see in general.
Yeah, and I know they ended the video with Mew and Mewtwo. Don't know anything about the relevance of that. I know the Mewtwo Mew Tag Team GX was a very powerful card. Just I was I was going to say a couple years ago. It's been more than a couple years,
It's been like six
but I
years.
remember us playing that in the Team Challenge tournaments as that was our format.
Yeah, no, so it's going to be an interesting set. Definitely going to be collector based, but the biggest takeaway from that, like we said, is for the first time pretty much ever, that isn't a release of a tournament promo. We're seeing a set that's going to be released worldwide at the same time, and there's not going to be a release gap between the Japanese markets and the rest of the world markets.
I'm excited for that. But speaking of a set being released, I think that's a perfect transition for us to start talking about Perfect Order, which will be released at the end of March. I believe March 26th is the official release date for this set. And with pre-releases starting 2 weeks prior. So we made this episode right before the start of pre-release. That way you can go in with some knowledge of what cards you want, what they're about to do, and just really be excited for rotation. So before we talk about Perfect Order, Devin, why don't you give us a quick summary about how rotation works and the importance of rotation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go in a little more detail what rotation is when we do our what are we losing video that will be coming out later in this month. But what rotation is it is a time of the competitive calendar where Pokemon will remove cards from the card pool, and now with the last year or so, they are going to be getting removed with a certain what that we call a regulation mark. Back in the day, it used to be kind of blocks of sets that got removed. So it was like around 4 to 5 sets, maybe six if there's a couple mini sets printed within a calendar year. But now with the introduction of regulation marks over about 2 years ago, it's making the rotation guesswork a lot less guessy. It is pretty much we can guarantee what cards we know we're going to lose because we see the marks on the cards when they get printed. Now, the reason why we waited so long to talk about rotation on the channel was because there was a lot of unknowns with this Perfect Order set, because there's about 35 cards that are being reprinted or reintroduced with this set, and we didn't know what trainers would be affected in them. So we didn't want to make a rotation video with an introduction of a re-regulation of a card. So, and that's very important for trainers, not as important for Pokemon, because once a Pokemon card is printed, it doesn't really get a re-regulation, but trainer cards can. So, we are in the J Block era with the Perfect Order cards, so that gives these cards 2 years of standard viability. And with this rotation coming up, we are introducing Perfect Order, but also pulling about 5 sets worth of cards out of the pool at the same time.
Awesome, yeah. I all I know is when they introduced the regulation marks, it made knowing what's rotating a whole lot easier
Mm-hmm.
because you had to know what set the card was from, and you had to know what symbol that set was. That was always a pain in the butt, and we had to include that on our deck list. So now with the regulation mark, it does make this guesswork a whole lot easier. So with all that being said, I think let's start a discussion. So keep in mind when we talk about these cards, we need to remember what we are losing. So we may not be hype on some certain like item cards or tool cards, for instance, because we're losing Arvin. Arvin is one of the cards that are rotating, and then we may be hype about certain abilities or certain text on cards because we're also losing a lot of hand disruption. So no more Iona will be around, which you can see in the last Champions League how that was such a prominent factor. So when we talk about the cards, keep that in mind. We're not. There are some cards that we're going to lose that we have done a research on. So if you're like, oh, what about so and so? Trust us, we have thought about it and we probably forgot about it as we were doing our pre-meeting discussion. So with that, I think we want to start with trainer cards, right? And we also want to introduce a kind of like a rating system in this episode too, right, Dev?
Yeah, so we're going to start with the trainer cards, and we're going to start with the trainer cards because a lot of the cards, like a lot of the Pokemon, because Perfect Order is the beginning of a new regulation market, is the beginning of a rotated era, these cards have a lot of internal synergy with each other. So it makes more sense to talk about the trainer stadiums and special energy before the Pokemon. That way, the dots are connected more straightforwardly. in terms of this like new rating system, we've already kind of always talked about it with our other set reviews, but this time we kind of want to more formalize it. Where in the past you've heard us probably say, "Oh, this is a four of in your binder." Kind of sit on four and see what happens in the future, or yes, this is a card that's easily going to be a two of in every single deck, or this is a one of tech. We're now formalizing that into a more of a playability scale where the number does represent how much and how many we think you should have in your collection. And that could be also interpreted, and I would easily be more than okay with telling you, yes, that's how many I think you should buy if you want to go on the singles route instead of opening booster packs. So if we give a card a four, we're saying you need to have four of these in your collection. This would be this would be a more than often four of in a deck if it focuses on it, or it doesn't hurt to have four just in case the playability fluctuates with a combination that will happen in the future. Now, if we call a card a one, doesn't mean we think it's a bad card. We just think it's more of a tech one of card slot. Very a good example of that would be a Mega Mawile. That's a one if we would be using our scale because it is a one of tech in almost every iteration that you see it. While a Dynamotor Electric would be a four because you're running a three to four of in any single deck it runs into. So those are kind of the examples that we're talking about in terms of this rating scale that we're kind of creating. This isn't anything new. We've always talked about this in the periphery in our set review. Now we're just kind of formalizing as part of the conversation.
Exactly. And of course, things can change as we get more and more sets. If we say something that is a four of, it may become a one of in the future, or vice versa. If we think that this card is just going to be bulk, and then all of a sudden there's a new mechanic that's introduced, that could happen. We just don't know what's going to be out there just because they're always printing cards, they're always printing new ways of interacting with the game in itself. So take this with the grain of salt, but we're just saying this for what we have now in the perfect order format.
Yes.
So with that, I think let's start with the trainers. And our first card that is going to be introduced in the trainer set is Energy Swatter. So it's an item card which reads your opponent reveals their hand, choose an energy card you find there, and put it on the bottom of your opponent's deck. And then you can play as many item cards as you like during your turn.
So to me, I think the playability of this card is very low. I think this if it goes into a deck you're running one to two of because you need that for the consistency piece. In terms of the consistency with it, I wouldn't go any more than that. But I think the reason why this card is getting a lot of attention is because of the first sentence of that card. Your opponent reveals their hand. Even if you don't hit an energy, you're finding out what your opponent has in their hand, and that can help you map out the rest of your turn. And that's very vital information. And if you do hit an energy, cool, you just put them back a turn. So it's a low risk, high reward card, but I don't ever really see this more than a one or a two in any deck. Like I would probably call this a two, but I would tell people to buy four of just to have it. It's an uncommon item. You're probably going to naturally get four of anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for most decks, a two of, just because one, it's you get relevant information, and two, I just reread the text again. It just says energy, so it includes special energy. So new upper, put that in the bottom of your opponent's deck. Ignition energy, the new special energies that we'll talk about just in a few minutes. It doesn't specify basic versus special, so it's an easy way to get something, a resource that your opponent will need for their turn, and put it back in their deck. With that being said, there are a lot of cards out there that will bring that energy back already. So you have Hilda, you have Kohler's Tenacity. If it's a basic energy, you have Crispin still. So yes, it's annoying to lose that energy in your hand, but there are also a lot of outs to get that energy back into your hand. I would say if a deck is going to take full advantage of this card, it's going to be some sort of control deck. So either Alexander Cremasoli or Sandra Wojcik will probably have a field day because they are control masters. For everyone else, I think Okay, yeah, it's a little bit of like disruption because we don't have hand disruption, but I would rather put other consistency cards in my deck versus a card like this.
Yeah, it's very much a control card, and there's not really a strong control archetype in the current format, and I really haven't seen control really gain a foothold with the post rotation Japanese meta. But it doesn't mean the card is not good. It's just it's very volatile. It's very much a variable card. Like I said, to me, this card is a two. It's a very strong two, but because it's going to be a uncommon or a common a trainer, you're going to easily get four of in your collection. And if you love control or you want to put a control piece to your deck, I think this is a card that's worth putting in because again, it's low risk, high reward, where the minimum you're getting is hand knowledge. The best you're doing is disruption. There's no lose to it. It's just it's going to do what you want it to do.
Yeah, it's a nice middle of the road card. Um, will you see a lot of play with it? No, but a player that will put it in their deck, they will know what it can do and it will do well for them.
Yes, exactly. So the
So,
next card I want to talk about is a card that is we talked about the regulation marks, right? This card is being reintroduced and kind of just getting its shelf life extended, and that is Pokepad. It is now a
mhm.
J Mark card, and to me, the biggest impact of Pokepad being in this set is that Pokepad was in the Ascended Heroes set. Ascended Heroes is not a traditional print set. It is a bundle kind of set where you have to buy special product to get your hands on this on the packs in order to get an opportunity at this card. And this card was an uncommon in that set. This set is going to be a traditional set, so it's going to be booster packs, ETBs, and booster bundles. All this much more easier to get a hold of. And reports are saying this is going to be a common trainer in the set. So you're going to be able to get your four of very easily. Now, for those who do not know what Pokepad does, now we talked about the accessibility of the card. Search your deck for a Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box. Reveal it, put it in your hand. It is a free search for anything that doesn't have a rule box, and it is the most free card you can get. Every deck's going to run it. To me, this card is probably going to, it is a 4 rating. It's a 4 of in your collection, and in most decks you're running 3 to 4 of anyway.
Oh yeah.
So this is a card that everyone is excited about. It is not a new card. It's just a card to get easier now than it was in the past.
Yeah. Right before we recorded, I actually did look up how much that card is with Ascended Heroes on the singles market, and it's a $7 card right now. Just because I said the Ascended Heroes is a special set, is an uncommon card, so the pull rate isn't as high compared to what it may be with Perfect Order. So with that, the prices are going to go down. Um, I was fortunate enough to get an ETB for Ascended Heroes at a really good price, and I didn't pull a single Ascended Hero or a single Pokepad in my ETB. I got my Psyducks, I got my Golducks, and I got my Bidoos. No Pokepads.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's being reprinted in perfect order, it's going to flood the market. More players will have access to this card, which will bring down the price. But yeah, definitely a 4 of. And honestly, if you play multiple decks, this is a 4 plus of. Like you want to make sure you have multiple play sets of these if you do run multiple decks because it is so powerful. It gives you any Pokemon that's not a roll box. So if you're playing a single prize card, get 4 of. If you're playing something that's a setup deck that doesn't have the EX Pokemon, get this card. This is going to be a staple in any deck for the next 2 years,
Oh,
easily.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm. So, with that being said, another new card we want to talk about pairs with a new Pokemon archetype that's going to be released, and this is the Core Memory Pokemon tool. This is actually the only tool being introduced in this set. And what it reads is the Mega Zygarde EX. So, spoiler alert, we get Mega Zygarde EX. Um, that this card is attached to can use an attack on this card. So think of it like the old the technical machine cards,
Mhm.
something similar to that, or the seal like Forest Seal Stone, Earth and Seal Stone, something along those lines. For 4 fighting energy, it has Geobuster, 350 damage, and discard all energy from this Pokemon.
So,
That is a pretty strong attack.
oh yeah, it's a finisher attack in a Mega Zygarde deck. Mega Zygarde is the poster child of this set, so if you didn't know Mega Zygarde was a thing, you didn't look at the packaging. Um, Mega Zygarde is, and we'll talk about Mega Zygarde in more detail when we get to that. It is a big, bulky Pokemon where all its attacks are fairly heavy attack costs. But the discard all energy piece, so say you don't finish the game with this attack, 350 KOs everything. So anything that doesn't have a HP modifier.
Hmm.
So it's one of those situations where even if you don't finish the game with it, the discarding all the energy, discarding the 4 fighting energy is not bad because there is fighting energy recursion coming into this set. So there is again a lot of synergy cards with this.
That's the next card we're going to talk about. Because we're getting our information from PokeBeach, and literally the next card underneath this core memory is Tarragon.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new supporter. It's a character from Pokemon Legends EA, and it reads: put up to 4 in any combination of fighting Pokemon and basic fighting energy from your discard pile into your hand.
Yeah.
So there we go. You can use Geobuster and then use Tarragon your next turn to get the energy back into your hand.
Or you could recover your fighting Pokemon. So the Tarragon supporter is so to go back to the core memory. The core memory is a 1 or 2 of. I'll give it honestly a rating of a 1. Even in a Mega Zygarde deck, you're only running really a 1 of this because you're only actually using it once, and you're only searching it for late game. This is not a mid to early game card at all in the deck. This is a finisher, so it doesn't have to really be more than a 2 of in a deck. But to me, my rating of this card is a 1 because it fills a very specific niche in a very
Mhm.
specific deck. You can't use it anywhere else. Not to say it's not a good card. It's just it's the definition of a tech card. This is a tech card for a certain deck for a certain role, and you only really need 1 or 2 in the deck just for consistency's sake.
I agree with that. I would say 2 at the absolute most, and that's more for just consistency and having it in your deck when you need it. But I think, yeah, 1 should be plenty because it is a finisher. 350, and it's also, it needs 4 energy. So there is a way to get it onto the Zygarde, but it may not be the easiest depending on what stage of the game you're in.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, yeah, 2 at the absolute max just for consistency's sake, but realistically, a 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for the Tarragon supporter, to me, this is a 3 in fighting decks. Like you're running a 2 to 3 of this card in fighting decks, and this is your recursion. This is your way to get basic fighting energy back into hand. This card very much goes very well with the Lunatone Soul Rock engine because you are discarding the energy and then you can get it back with your supporter. Obviously, you're not wanting a Tarragon for 1 or 2 cards. You want a Tarragon for 4, but that also means you could be very liberal with your Ultra Balls and kind of get rid of Pokemon and energy with your Ultra Balls, knowing that you're going to Tarragon them back into your hand later in the turn. So to me, this card is a solid 3 because I think it has a lot of synergy in the fighting archetype. And fighting was not a type that needed a bigger boost to its ecosystem. And fighting got very very good cards in this set. So I think fighting as an overall typing is going to be really really strong in the post rotation meta, and that's partially because Gardevoir is leaving, but fighting is getting significantly stronger.
Yeah, and I also want to mention we're also losing Slime Mold Colony Toad Scroll. So we're not going to have that ability to where we can't put stuff into our hand anymore. It's going to be a free game all over again. So these cards like Tarragon, Night Stretcher, they become more powerful, more useful again. So yeah, I think a 3 is a great number for this because you don't really necessarily need 4.
Mhm.
Because you have other cards that can do this a similar thing that's going to be around as well. Because this is your supporter for turn, but this is a really good supporter. It's kind of like a max belt mixed with I wouldn't say a super rod because super rod goes into your deck, but it's a great way to get the resources back into your hand. And there's some Pokemon that's being introduced in this set that will synergize with this supporter as well. But yeah, I think for Mega Lucario decks, this is a super powerful new
Yes.
supporter because you play the Solak Lunatone engine, put the energy into your discard, and then you can Terragon, get it back in, and that's really how you're gonna keep using your draw support over and over again with that engine because you don't really have one with Mega Lucario. And then obviously there's going to be a lot more fighting decks that are going to come from this. So yeah, a three is probably a really good number to have in your collection for this from this set.
Yep. And then the next supporter that's being introduced in this set is Naveen, another character from Legends EA video game. And Naveen reads: discard any number of cards from your hand, then draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So this is again another discard synergy card. So putting resources into your discard pile, we've talked about in the past, is a very strong place. The discard pile is one of the safest places a resource can be in the game. We are running a lot of decks right now that want to pull resources out of the discard pile at very specific times. There are there's decks out there that want certain things in the discard pile because of attack modifiers or because of conditions. So I think this Naveen is a very good draw and discard management supporter. I would say this card is a 2. I don't see it in any real decks, even the ones that want to have a whole bunch of stuff in the discard pile. I think a Naveen is a 2 because there's other discard cards that probably can be more efficient for your deck. And also, Professor's Research is a thing. So discarding your hand and drawing 7 is always better than discarding all your hand and drawing 5. So it does its job, but there's cards out there that can do it better, which is why I think it's a solid 2. It reminds me a lot of the Kyrian kind of card where it has a niche. It can do what you needed to do. It's a like Kyrian is a solid 2 to me in deck building, but you don't really need more than that. So to me, this is a card that is a 2 for sure.
I agree. I think a two is a good number, just because again there are cards that have similar effects that just do it better. Um, this card really reminds me of Serena when that came out because it had the same type of effect where you can discard cards from your hand to draw, and I believe it's up to 5 as well. But only having your hand up to 5, and that's with you choosing how many to discard. So you can discard your whole entire hand, but as you said, like, well, I could just research, or I could Carmine. Carmine you can do it on your first turn if you go first. There's just a lot of similar cards that we can play in its place. However, I think this is really good in decks like Cellar Edge, where you want to get energy in the discard, and you can say like, okay, I have 8 cards in my hand. I just want to lose my energy. I want to keep everything else. Well, you can choose to lose the energy and draw until you have 5, and hopefully they're not more energy. So there is synergy with some decks with this,
Mhm.
but again, there's cards out there that do similar, and there's item cards that can do similar. So choosing your supporter for some of an item card can do not the best trade off, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this in decks as well. So 2 is a good number to have in your collection for Naveen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next card, I'm actually a little bit hyped on because I think it will fit in a lot of decks going forward, and it's the Rosa's Encouragement. So what this card reads is you can only use this if you have more prize cards than your opponent. So comeback mechanics, Pokemon's still playing into that. Attach up to 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile to one of your stage 2 Pokemon. So I didn't know this card existed until I was scrolling through some City League decks and Typhlosion is one of my decks right now that I love playing. And I saw this card in there. I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense for Typhlosion. It's a stage 2. You can power up multiple Typhlosions at once. You can also, honestly, you can put the energy on one Pokemon if you want. Actually, no, you
No,
only
you
can do it
can
on
do
one.
up to two
Sorry.
energy to one Pokemon. But still, in a Typhlosion based art type, you can power up two Typhlosions in a single turn because you use Rosa for attachment on Typhlosion 1 and your manual attachment for Typhlosion 2. But I think Rosa's encouragement, like when you were telling me about, like we were talking about this card, the deck I think that will abuse this card is going to be Dragapult EX.
Oh,
Because right
absolutely.
now, Dragapult has been utilizing a lot of other energy manipulation cards and different ways of getting energy and cheating energy into play. I think this Rosa's encouragement pairs very well with this because Dragapult already plays Dusknoir. So you can just pop your Dusknoir, you can give them a prize, have them be ahead in a prize trade, turn on Rosa's encouragement, power up a Dragapult out of nowhere, and then do whatever else you need to do on the board. So 200 and then spread the 60. So thus, Dragapult could very easily manipulate its game state to turning this card on and off on a dime with out of nowhere. To me, this card, in terms of deck, is you're running a 2 of in a deck. You don't really need a lot of it, but you want to have 4 of these in your binder. Like this is a good 4 card, and it's because it gets better over time because we're just going to get better and better stage 2s.
Exactly. I think the 2/4 is an appropriate number. Right now, you only need two because you have other supporters that you want to play in the beginning and the late game of your match. I say this is a solid mid game supporter to help really get you back on track and really take tempo from your opponent. But as you mentioned, like Pokemon's moving towards a slower and slower format where we need to evolve in a lot of ways, pun intended. But like they want you to use the evolution Pokemon. So having a 4 of in your collection this early before this card may become a very expensive card, I would say take advantage of it now. That way, when it becomes a more meta relevant card, you already have it in your collection and you're good to go.
Yep, absolutely. And then the next card I want to talk about is the only stadium being introduced in this set, which is Lumino City. It's once during each player's turn, that player may search their deck for a basic Pokemon, put it onto their bench, shuffle your deck, your turn ends. So this is very similar in terms of stadium effects of cards like Tropical Beach. It is a very powerful, limited search card. It's a very, very good turn 1 stadium. So you do
Mm-hmm.
your whole turn, Luminos City, and something that onto your bench that wasn't searchable with your other mechanics. It's on your bench, you're good to go, and then it just kind of sits there until it gets bumped. Because you don't really want to use this stadium unless you're either going turn 1 and you have nothing else to do, or you're kind of stuck and you just have to reset your board. So it is very limited on what it can do. To me, this is a rating of a 1. I think this is a stadium you probably have a 1, maybe a 2 at absolutely most into a deck, but I think it's just so limited that you don't want to have it out in play because you can't really utilize its effect because unless you can attack, you're not attacking and you don't want to give up the attack phase.
Yeah, it reminds me of Metzagoza. It doesn't have the coin flip, so that there's that one positive thing with this card. But again, if you use it, your turn ends. But it specifies just a basic Pokemon,
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't say it has to be a roll box, non-roll box. So any of the big basics, this is a great way to get it out and play. Typically, if you can use an Ultra Ball or another way of getting the Pokemon out onto your bench, that way you can um, put energy attached to it because a lot of the big basics require a lot of energy to be able to pull off your strategy. But this is a nice backup Again, I think a one to two is plenty for a deck, just because it does end your turn. You don't want to play this mid to late game if you can. You want to do this in the beginning where not attacking isn't as important versus getting your board set up. But this is a great way to get any basic Pokemon in play. Doesn't have to be a rule box or non rule box. But at the same time, there's item cards, supporter cards that do the same thing that doesn't end your turn. So it's like, what what is it worth to you to get your board set up in the first turn or two of the match?
Mm-hmm.
So next, we're going to talk about three new special energies that are going to be introduced. Um, I would say one of them is super strong, and the other two are actually kind of they're okay, but there's definitely a standout one. So we'll start off with a standout one, and no surprise, it's Telepath Psychic Energy. And this reads, this card provides psychic energy when it's attached to a Pokemon. When you attach this card to your from your hand to your psychic Pokemon, you may search your deck for two basic psychic Pokemon and put them on your bench. So it reminded me of Capture Energy, but even better.
Yeah.
So Alakazam is going to be very strong.
Yeah, so Alexam loves this type of card. The one thing that I think is very intriguing on how these cards are worded. Now, I'm waiting. I want to see the official English translation to make sure this is correct. But none of these cards state that they have to be attached to the card of its same typing for it to count as the energy type that it's representing. So this card provides psychic energy. You can attach this to a non-psychic Pokemon. You just don't get the second part of the card, which is the bonus effect. And that's very important because cards that have multiple energy costs, like the dragon types, you could slot this into a dragon deck like Dragapult and put a couple of psychic Pokemon, like, I don't know, Dusknoir, into your deck, attach it to a Dusknoir, and just go a little wider on that turn. Or if you don't want to go wider, that's perfectly fine. Attach it to your Dragapult and hit the attack cost so you need. So it's more flexible than you think it is. Cards like this used to say this card can only be attached to a psychic Pokemon. If it's not attached to a psychic Pokemon, it's a colorless attack. Or it gets discarded if it gets attached to a non psychic Pokemon. So these cards have a lot more freedom to use than before, pending translation. But this telepath psychic energy is probably the best of the three, and the other two are not bad cards either. This is for sure a four in all psychic decks. If you're running
Mm-hmm.
a psychic deck, this is a four of because there's no drawback to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I didn't even think about like putting it onto non-psychic Pokemon because we've really only seen it in psychic decks. But yeah, like yes, we keep going back to Dragapult, but Dragapult is going to be the BDIF going into rotation because that one's not going anywhere. And then like you said, we're waiting for official translation, official ruling. But yeah, like if that can be your psychic energy, like you said, it gives you more flexibility in how you play Dragapult, especially with having the Dusknoir line. Um, it reminds me of Speed Lightning Energy when we had those type of cards back
Mm-hmm.
in the format. And I remember playing in the tournament, someone attached a Speed Lightning Energy to a non-Lightning Pokemon, and I had to gently remind them, like, hey, by the way, you're not getting the special effect. So that's something to be careful of when you do play multiple types of Pokemon in your decks with energy like this. But yeah, I would say definitely a four of in any psychic deck, and maybe a one to two of in a non-psychic energy deck where you need psychic energy. So this is definitely something that I would really invest in because it's just going to get better. And there's actually really good psychic Pokemon coming out in this set as well that we'll get to that will really be this special energy will be very beneficial for.
Yep, absolutely. And then one of the other special energy coming in the set is Grow Grass Energy. It is a grass special energy that says this card provides grass energy. The grass Pokemon this card's attached to gets plus 20 HP. So this is for again, this is a 4 in all grass decks. Um, Grass decks do not hate this card. Even the Meganium engine. Yes, the Meganium engine can't double this card, but giving Pokemon 20 to 80 extra HB gets them out of one shot range. It can turn one shots to two shots to three shots. And Grass is a very good typing right now in the meta. It hits certain Pokemon for weakness. Strong decks are being introduced in this set that have a carry a Grass weakness. So it's one of those situations where plus 20 is enough to get you out of one shot or two shot range. It helps with the Grass attack costs. It can't be doubled, but Raging Bolt is going to like this card because of the Teal Masks. Because of, and again, Teal Mask can't use this for Teal Dance, but you can give Teal Mask 28 more health, and it's at 230 instead of 210 now. So
Mm-hmm.
there's ways to use this and utilize that benefit of the HP buff, and also use it as a actual attachment in certain archetypes.
Yeah, I think the Meganium deck is definitely going to be the best deck to abuse this card. If y'all thought 380 HP on a Mega Venusaur was a lot, just attach a couple of these energy, and you're gaining 400 plus HP on a Pokemon, which is going to be insane. But I think the Teal Mask is actually very important as well because 210 was such an easy number, and attaching this energy gets it out of range of a lot of cards, one of which we'll talk about in this set review as well. Because we do lose Bravery Charm, so it's at least some sort of HP modifier for a lot of these grass decks. But yeah, I would say a four of in any grass deck, maybe 1, 2 in a deck that's not grass centric. Um, yeah, just HP modifiers are super important, and we don't really have a lot of them in this format. So when you can have it, let take advantage of it for sure.
Yep.
And the last special energy that we want to talk about is Rock Fighting Energy. This card provides fighting energy when it's attached to a Pokemon. Prevent all effects of attacks used by your opponent's Pokemon done to the fighting Pokemon this card is attached to. Existing effects are not removed. Damage is not an effect. So you can block Phantom Dive.
Yes, you can. You can block Dust Noir. Or no, from attack. Sorry,
No, that's an
that's
ability,
the
so
ability.
you
Sorry.
still take the Dusknoir.
Yeah, you still take
But
Dust Noir,
Phantom
but
Dive is prevalent enough, and that's a good enough reason for me.
yeah, but the key thing here is existing effects are still there. So if the Pokemon's in the active, the special condition caused from an effect of an attack still stays, like poison or paralyzed or anything like that. It doesn't cure the status condition, but it prevents it from being reapplied. Um,
Yeah.
so there is a lot of secondary effects in the game, just in general. So this deck, these cards, fight, especially the fighting Pokemon. Like I said, fighting already had a good ecosystem to operate in. It's just getting better. This energy is definitely another key component of fighting, just getting stronger with this set.
Yeah. It's just another piece. Um, I wouldn't say this is a four of compared to the other two. I would say this is maybe a three of in a deck because you don't really need a lot of the rock fighting to make your deck really work. And since you're only preventing effects, there's other ways to prevent that as well. But I think a three of is good just for the consistency because if you have two of these in play, I think your board state is pretty strong enough to really withstand any other attacks that have these effects like Phantom Dive and whatnot. But I wouldn't blame a player if they did put four of these in their deck.
Yeah, for sure, a three is solid. Like you're not going to ever need more than 2 to 3 in play to really protect your board state. But you play four just for consistency. So I agree with the three rating. I think it's all three of these special energies are really, really good. The telepathic psychic is by far the best. Grass Grow is number two, and then this Rock Fighting is number three. But they're all really, really good. They're all going to see play. They're all going to impact the meta, and they all can be splashed into different decks because of just how the meta and especially dragon types existing. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these cards are played.
Yeah. It also makes me think of the future when we get the other type energies as well,
Mm-hmm.
because Pokemon has a history of make if whenever they do energies like this, they make them for all the energies. They don't leave them out. I know in the Ninja Spinner, there's going to be a steel type energy. I can't remember if there's another energy as well,
There's a water and a
but
steel coming, so and
yeah.
that's not
So
counting the set that Ninja Spinner. What our Chaos Rising is going to be Ninja Spinner plus something else is going to carry. So you're 100% right. We're going to be seeing more and more of these. All the types are going to get their special energies, and they're all going to impact. So this is just the beginning of a new block of special energies.
oh yeah, absolutely. So those are the training cards. Are there any cards you're particularly excited for from the trainer set, the trainer cards that we were talking about, other than Pokepad? Because
I
we're
would
all
say other
excited
than
about
Pokepad
Pokepad.
because that's obviously the most. I am very intrigued on the future of Rosa's encouragement. Obviously, we talked about the immediate impact of Rosa encouragement and a couple of very prevalent meta level decks. But this being a stage two focused supporter, signifying to me that stage twos are going to be a big piece of this mega evolution block of cards. So I'm very intrigued on how important that card's going to be on the future of this meta of the really the 26 to 27 world cycle because it just signifies to me we're going to get a lot of stage twos in the next two to three sets.
Yeah, that card is, I think, powerful enough, even with the cards that we're getting in the last couple sets. Another deck that I think will be a very good deck that can utilize it is Mega Dragonite, because you do have to discard the 2 energy for the 330 attack, and then you can use Rosa's encouragement to put that energy back on there and not really worry about if you have the Dynamotor Electric out or available. You can just support her and then use Sky Transport and just go back and forth and create a combo with that in itself. I think a card that I'm actually really excited to see is the Tarragon package, just because there's a lot of fighting support, and this just really makes it over the top, in my opinion. I think the Tarragon in itself helps so many decks outside of Fighting Gong and the Solak Lunatone engine. You don't need those anymore to make Tarragon be a very powerful and main strategy of a deck. So I'm interested to see how we see that come out in the competitive scene if we do, or just different rogue decks um, that will create in the future.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Fighting is getting so much stronger. And I think fighting's getting stronger both by addition and by subtraction because of what it's gaining and what it's not having to face anymore. So just be on the lookout for a lot of very impactful fighting archetypes going forward.
Those are the trainers, and man, I thought this would be a quick discussion, but even with those few trainers we got, there's so much that goes into this set that we have to do multiple videos for this.
Absolutely. I think this set with rotation is very impactful. And it's not just because of the set itself, it's the environment the set is living in, which is the first set of a rotation era. So, with that being said, this is part one of our set review. And then be on the lookout for part two, where we go into depth on all the Pokemon cards. So, if you watch both, please just go back and forth. The conversation is very important. All these cards deserve this attention. So there will be a part two coming up very shortly after part one goes live. So keep an eye on the channel for that. And if you have any suggestions on things we kind of ideas we missed that involve these trainers and these special energies, let us know in the comments section. We would love to know what everyone's ideas are kind of growing into this rotation era, because this is a new era of Pokemon. We are getting ready realistically for not just the 2026 World Championships, but also the 2027 World Championships with these cards.
Absolutely. There's a lot that goes into rotation. It's honestly, if you know someone that wants to just get back into the game or get into the game, this is the time that really have them get into it, because there's not a lot of sets that will jumble what they want to do. It's pretty straightforward. Everyone starts in a even playing field. So this is the time to really get back in the game if you want to. But thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you can, like and subscribe to us. We are a growing channel. We're just trying to do as much as we can to really put out more and more content. We've been releasing more Rogue Showcase videos, so let us know what you think about those. We're trying to go through all the extended heroes before we get into perfect order. And we actually have a nice series coming up the week of rotation. So be on the lookout for videos with some decks that we haven't touched on in a while, and also our thoughts about what rotation and what cards we're really going to be missing. So stay tuned for that. But again, like and subscribe to us. Tell your friends about us. We're always looking for new followers. And if you have any ideas for videos that you want us to see, let us know. We do read all the comments. We do respond to them all. And we're just here just to love Pokemon. This is a passion project of ours, and we're just here to help everyone grow. And that's what this game is all about.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, keep an eye out for part 2 of our set review for Perfect Order. And with that, guys, thank you very much. And as always, have fun playing those sneaky decks.
See you guys.